I've known a bunch of people who've had to relocate in the middle of this pandemic, and it's been a real struggle for them to find new friends, to find people to spend time with, because we're not supposed to do that. Are there lessons to be learned from the virtual music community? Stick around, let's talk about it. Hey, welcome to Charlie's Open Mic. My name is Charlie Mosbrook. On this week's show, my guest is Dave Mason. He's a singer-songwriter based in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's originally from England, and he's getting ready to move to Switzerland this coming summer. Fortunately for him, he's already been able to introduce himself to the community he's moving into via virtual concerts. Stick around, we're going to talk to him about that, but first we're going to listen to his music.
Online, it's SongTime. Got to get some rhythm in my day. 'Cause sometimes when words rhyme, a melody can take me far away. Far from all those things that try to break me. Far from everything that brings me down. When life itself seems somehow to forsake me. On music's wings I'm high above the ground. It's easy on my PC, logging in and I will be there soon. Quickly hit return key. Fill me up with lyrics, poems, and tunes. Tunes that flood our lives with expectations. Tunes that say there's nothing we can't do. Words to fill our hearts and heal our nations. Songs of joy and hope for me and you. Are streaming, inspiration, fantasy, and rhyme. Believing, not just dreaming, that miracles do happen all the time. The miracle of singing and of sharing. The miracle of love that's here to stay. Music is a thank you all for caring. Enough for me to make it through today. It's SongTime online. You got to get some rhythm in your day. 'Cause sometimes when the words rhyme, a melody will take you far away. SongTime. Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Dave Mason.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to be here, man.
Now, I met you originally down in Cincinnati through Leo's Coffeehouse, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but you are originally from England.
That's correct.
When,
From Newcastle upon Tyne.
Newcastle. You
Hmm.
want to tell me about your early years and the time you spent?
Well, I didn't stay there actually very long. I was only in Newcastle till I was 7 years old. My dad was not a union man, and in the 60s, the union movement, as you probably know, in the States was a big thing. And so he shipped us all off to Johannesburg in South Africa. So that's where I grew up.
When did you start playing music?
I started playing, well, in fact, my first instrument I started playing is the Highland bagpipes. I've been playing the bagpipes since I was about 12. Still playing, still writing stuff. I started playing guitar when I was actually in the Air Force. So that would have been in 1980.
And was that the South African Air Force?
That was the South African Air Force, yeah.
Any of the music in South Africa, did that influence you?
You know, my music was always influenced by, I think, probably a lot of what influenced people here. You know, the big acts like Simon and Garfunkel, Cat Stevens, James Taylor, Gordon Lightfoot. These were guys who, because of the record companies, were very popular in South Africa. And of course, Rodriguez. You must have heard of Rodriguez from Detroit. He's a story on his own. There was a film made about him a couple of years back called "Searching for Sugar Man," and it won an Oscar. And he was a really big influence on me. I used to listen to his stuff when I was in the Air Force, and then one of the guys who was in camp with me had a guitar and could play, and he could play Jim Croce and he could play John Denver and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, this is what I've got to do. So that's when I started. A lot of people asked me, and they still ask me actually, have I done any African music? I was always of the opinion, I always felt false doing African music because I wasn't born there. I grew up there, but I'm not a Zulu or a Xhosa. I couldn't identify with that music, and so I never felt that was a path that I would want to take. I'm more a traditional English folk kind of person.
When did you make your way to the States?
I left South Africa in 1996, ostensibly for a year to go and do piping and folk music in the UK. And I met my now wife, who works for a multinational company that are based here in Cincinnati. And that's why we ended up in the States. It's our second time in the States, actually. So we were here from 2006 to 2009, and then again back here in 2015. And we'll go back to Europe again in the summer.
Have you been back recently?
Well, no, it's over a year since we were back. And of course, with what's happened with Brexit, my wife works in Switzerland. We have a house in France, which is just across the border. If we'd stayed in that house for 5 years, we could have applied for French citizenship, but we left like 2 months short of 5 years and came here. And then they voted for Brexit. So we now find ourselves in a strange predicament that we actually can't go back to our house in France because we don't have French citizenship, and therefore the Swiss won't give us a visa, a work permit based on our French status. They won't give it to us as on our British status because we're not in Britain either. So we actually have to move to Switzerland. we have to move 20 minutes from our house and live in rented apartment because we can't actually live in our house. So it's strange.
So when I met you, it was a place called Leo's Coffeehouse, which is
Yeah.
sort of the folk music organization of Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Queen City Balladeers, they call themselves, and they've been going here since 1963, I think. I think it started off originally at the university, as did many of the folk clubs in the 60s. I think it's had its ups and downs. I think it's closed down for a couple of months or years and whatever. But there's always been a core of people who've tried to keep it going. And if you ask me, it's probably one of the nicest venues that you can actually go and play at because it's more like a listening room, and it's very, very seldom that you find a room that's as forgiving as Leo Coffee House. The other thing about Leo Coffee House that amazes me is the standard of acts that we get. I'm often blown away by the quality of both the songwriting and the performing standards. And of course, the guys on the sound make a good job of it as well, which is always important. So I love it, and it's a pity that we haven't been able to go back. We did have our first sing around a couple of weeks back, actually, on Zoom, but it's still not the same.
And they're planning more virtual concerts coming up, aren't they?
The way the Leo Coffee House works is that each Sunday of the month they have a different theme. So they have the first Sundays are ukulele jam, and the second Sundays are songwriters night, um, and they're going to continue those themes.
I saw a movie a couple months ago. It was called Mountain Miner, and it seemed to sort of take place in that area.
Well, I know that some of the people at Leo were involved in the making of in the music in the movie. I know for sure, and I think that the guy that made the movie is from this area. I'm not au fait with the story behind it. I think it's a story of every family that found it so hard living in the countryside, decided to move to the big city. And in this case, they moved, I think, from probably West Virginia or Kentucky down to Cincinnati, and always had this hankering to go back. Or the music was what actually joined them to the family back home.
I think what I found fascinating about that movie as I dug in further to it was that all the actors were actually very, very good musicians. And at least one of them was one of your locals,
Yeah,
a young fiddle player.
yeah, Mike Obers. Yeah, he's a fantastic musician. In fact, he's a multi instrumentalist as well. Very good on the banjo as well.
I think that just really speaks to the quality of musicianship that you have in the Cincinnati area. It was just something that really caught me, and something I've recognized, and something that I think is overlooked. I've heard a few people within bigger folk circles say that there's not much going on in Ohio, and I look at Cleveland, I say, oh, we've got a lot going on. And then the times I've come down and visited you all in Cincinnati, you've got a tremendous music scene with just some wonderful musicians.
I'm continually blown away at the standard of music here in Ohio. I mean, one of the people I've met through the music here at a place called Plain Folk Cafe, which is in Pleasant Plain, Ohio. A youngster called Josiah Whitley, and Josiah comes from Portsmouth, Ohio. And all I knew about Portsmouth, Ohio, before I met Josiah was that an investigative journalist wrote a book about the opioid crisis in the United States, and he named it after the swimming pool in Portsmouth, Ohio. And the reason why I know that is I have a friend who's a mom at my daughter's school, and she grew up in Portsmouth, and we were comparing notes between growing up in Johannesburg and growing up in Portsmouth, Ohio. And we quickly found out that we both had the public pool that we would spend hours at. And then she was telling me the story about this book that had been written about, because Portsmouth was one of the first towns where they established one of these pill mills. And of course, before that, Portsmouth, the factories closed down. There was a shoelace factory there, I think, and whatever. They closed down the factories, so there was unemployment. There was, and then of course, all these people coming back from the war, and there was a big drug problem. And when I met Josiah, who was this young guy coming out of Portsmouth with all this fantastic music that he was coming up with, I was blown away that you can't afford to let the generations before you determine who you are, and he was not going to do so. So Josiah is one example of great. There's another girl from Athens, Ohio called Megan B.
I know. She's great.
And I went down. I took a drive down to Athens and played at their Coffeehouse on a Friday night, and the standard of music was phenomenal, really. So I think when people say there's no music happening in Ohio, maybe there's not the opportunities for people to be seen. People want to go to bars and listen to the same stuff all the time or whatever. So, if there is more opportunity for people to get out there and not feel intimidated playing their own stuff. I'm a guy, when I go out and play, it doesn't matter where I play, I always slip in some of my own songs, because I believe that they're as good as the other stuff. And if I don't play them for people, I'm never going to get nobody's ever going to get to hear my music, and the feedback's always been good, and so hopefully more and more people will do that.
Well, your playing is beautiful, and that's a Breedlove you're playing?
That was a Breedlove I'm playing. I got that second hand, actually. A guy got it made for him, and he's a personal friend of Kim Breedlove's, and he was like, I need to buy a boat.
Of course, so we all.
And I'm like, this is the nice thing about guys going through their midlife crisis, because they need a boat, So I got a very good deal on that guitar, actually. So
when you head next year back to England and then Switzerland, assuming that you're going to be able to do everything you want to do,
exactly,
or that your family is planning to do,
yeah.
Is there a music scene in Switzerland?
Well, One of the things that I've been doing since this COVID is I've been appearing at a lot of folk clubs in the United Kingdom, in Germany. Um, and so some of the people that I've met through these clubs, I've been asking them, well, what's the folk scene like in Switzerland? And so slowly but surely, I'm finding out a little bit more of what's happening. I have a friend of mine in Geneva where we were before. He's a Brazilian guitarist and he's been there for years. And he's quite keen to get together and do something when I get back. So we'll have to wait to see whether we can do live gigs and stuff when we get back.
That's
I think it should happen with the vaccine. I think we should be back to normal within a year or so.
yeah, that's kind of a fascinating idea. I hadn't really even considered, but being able to do music virtually,
Yeah,
you're able to start integrating ahead of your move, so
yeah,
you can actually, and in some ways that may be more convenient for you.
exactly. And I had just started before COVID struck, so probably January, February time. I was creating a spreadsheet of folk clubs in the United Kingdom that I wanted to get in touch with, send them some of my music and whatever. And now I'm actually going out and playing at these places, and so it's been a fantastic opportunity, really. So I could go to 2 or 3 folk clubs every day of the week. It's amazing. With virtual concerts, your costs and your transport issues they're minimized to absolute zero. So you can give a concert. All we need to do is change the perception of the crowd. And if we can do that, we would be able to continue. In fact, some of the folk clubs that I'm going to at the moment, they're saying even when things get back to normal, they still want to have one night a week that they have a virtual folk club, because they've got people. Some of the folk clubs I go to normally have between 10 and 15 people every week, and now they get 30 people coming. They don't want to lose out on that because it's enriching for the people that come and listen.
Sometimes I feel like I've almost lost my ride. Sometimes I feel, well, that I must be taking stock. Sometimes I'm so alone, sometimes so insecure. But I will walk, and I will walk, and Lord, I'll walk, walk, walk down alone. The Erie shore. Sometimes I'm hiding in my room. Sometimes I'm humming my own tune. Sometimes when I can't see, sometimes I'm not so sure. Well, I will walk, and I will walk, and I will walk, walk, walk down alone. The Erie shore. I was standing at the side of the road again, and I was wondering where it is I've been, and taking all I knew was on this road that I grew. The night is falling on me hard. Sometimes I am scratching the surface. Sometimes Sometimes I'm living on a wish. Sometimes when I dream and all my thoughts are pure, well, I will walk, and I will walk, and I will walk, walk, walk down a long Erie shore. Thank you for watching Charlie's Open Mic this week, and thank you to Dave Mason for sitting down and talking to me and sharing his music. As always, please hit that subscription link down below. Please ring the bell for notifications of upcoming episodes. Always comment and like down below. And you can find us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find our Patreon link to help support the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.